Oh, yeah. What is up, everybody? How are we doing today? Listen, I wanted to come on here live just because I didn't want to pre-record. I am not really expecting anyone to show up in the comments section or show up live right now. I'm just going to kind of riff-raff and let this rock and roll. But, if you hop on, no worries. No big deal. I know it's a Saturday. I normally don't go live on Saturday. I normally don't go live on Saturday, too, because most people are busy with their lives. So I'm just going to get right into it. However, I do believe this. If you guys want to have a conversation about this topic, I just posted the link to StreamYard up in the chat. If you want to have a discussion about that. Giovanni, how's it going, my man? How we doing? So I've been kind of, I've been silent lately. I'm silent about a lot of stuff. If at all, I've been going live maybe once a week. And even then I feel like the topics were kind of forced and all that other shit. So, I've been chilling. I've been trying to just kind of, in a way, take care of myself, take care of my own well-being, navigate this kind of crazy world that we're living in right now. And just rock and roll. Another thing that you guys might not know is that especially before when I was coming on here all the time, it was even me processing my knowledge in the space of like masculinity, the red pill, manosphere, all this other stuff. When are we going to start making those short, well-edited videos again? When I feel like it. Honestly. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. When I feel like it. First and foremost, YouTube does not pay the fucking bills. None of this stuff pays the bills. This is more of kind of a hobby, educational type of stuff, kind of paying it forward as well. And, during this time, like I said, I'm just more than happy personally kind of taking care of my own stuff and just working through it. As I was just saying, one of the big things that I was doing when I started this channel was I was teaching. And at the same time, too, kind of for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So for my ability to teach, I was also navigating through the space myself, fine-tuning it. It's kind of what I'm finding myself doing with jiu-jitsu a bit right now. And I've kind of reached a point right now where I'm just like, you know what? I get it all. I see it all. I see through the matrix. I help guys that are deserving and are not just welcoming of my time, but are also respectful of my time. Like I talk about often, the WarTribe is that group of dudes. Very, very respectful group of guys that I only need to give just a little bit of, I really only got to give them a little bit of guidance, and then they go off on their own and do their own thing and maybe come back and ask for some help every once in a while. But I'm not getting my phone blown up. I'm not getting all this other stuff going on. Teaching how to Dougie. Nice. That's very old school of you. I actually did want to tell a story real quick. I'll just give a little, what's it called? But I've been kind of monk moding it myself, meaning really what it comes down to for me is I try to have sex at least once a week. That's kind of like my monk mode type of stuff, but I'm not really putting the bait out there. It seems like things are getting really spicy lately as far as online dating and dating in general is concerned. Women are kind of like uptight, very uppity right now, very, very uppity. But last Friday, not last night, but last Friday, I got myself a new little fresh, what's it called? And believe it or not, nice. I'll pull you onto the stream here in a second. As you guys can see, I have a StreamYard link that's up there, so feel free to click that and we'll have a discussion. I'm going to get into my main tenets and main topics here on empathy real quick, but I'll tell you my quick story from last week. Two cousins that were visiting from out of town, visiting from Illinois, matched with obviously one of them on Tinder. And she asked me, so it's like 12 o'clock at night last Friday. She's putting out there hard because obviously she's looking for some D real quick. And she's like, hey, do you happen to have a hot friend? And I was like, no hot friend. She's like, oh, that's too bad because I have a hot friend here with me. that's looking also for a guy. I'm like, well, I can entertain the both of you. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I was like, send me that number. So she sends me the number. I hop on a FaceTime real quick with both of them. And they're like, all right, come over. Come to find out, they were first cousins. They were first cousins. So I went over to their hotel and smashed the both of them. There were some stipulations, though, because they were both cousins. They didn't really want it to be classified as a threesome. So I kind of like separated them in a way. Oh, man, it was fucking hilarious. It was very odd, but also very hilarious. So that was pretty fun. A nice little surprise threesome at fucking midnight on Friday. They were both probably like 6s, 6.5s, but they were fun, actually. They were really fun. So I was like, fuck it, let's rock and roll. What's going on, dude? How we doing? Kevin in sales, I'll get to you in just a moment. Let me get this convo started so we can get rocking and rolling. First and foremost, let's talk about empathy. I'm going to talk about a few things. This is some stuff that I've been teaching people in general. 2.5 some. I dig it. Yeah, it was kind of, I mean, my dick went in both of them and without cleaning it off. So it was incestuous, if anything. Should have made a fucking movie. Anyway, let's talk about empathy real quick. But before we do that, I want to talk about, obviously you guys can tell with how I do business, I'm a bit of a visionary. I see a lot of the things that are wrong in society, and I've come up with solutions in order how to fix them. One of the big things that I'm learning right now about our society is that we have a lack of emotional teaching. Now, this is going to sound very kind of like hippie and leftist of me, but we have a lack of teaching people how to identify their own emotions. And that is actually what is causing a lot of the issues in this world today. Let me explain. So we start off with the greatest generation, the World War I, World War II generation, who went through the Great Depression, World War I, World War II. These people went through such hardships that emotions to them could not be a priority. It was survive. It was bury that shit, bury it deep down, grind, grit, just hardship, right? Just get that shit out of your head. Just A to B, fuck it, let's go. So when they raised their boomer generation of these are the most narcissistic people that we've had yet, honestly. The way that they raised their kids was kind of like a weird spectrum, right? The greatest generation, every situation was hammer nail, right? That's a nail over there and I'm a hammer. That's how I'm going to fix it all, right? So it's shut the fuck up, quit bitching. We had it worse. And I'm going to replace my emotional connection with you through material things because we didn't have material. So now that's the highest possession. What that ended up doing was it created a divergence in how the boomer generation took place. And we could see this because we can draw a parallel as to what ended up happening, right? Because it led to people that ascribed to that same level of understanding. And those were the types of people that were like, fuck it, let's work 40, 50, 60 years for the same type of company, make as much money as possible. Fuck my emotions, fuck my feelings. Let's smoke, let's drink, let's party. Going to a shrink and all that stuff is bad news. It's bad for you. It's taboo. But then it also created the other side of things, these new agey type people, the hippies, the free love type of people that end up having kids as well. And they're the types of people that believe that their emotions are everything. Everything is emotion. So it's like one side is the insanely toxic version of masculinity where it's like, do not discuss emotions or feelings, stay like overly, not even stoic, right? Because usually through stoicism, the beauty of stoicism is you renounce all this stuff in order for you to attain some level of mindfulness instead of running away. And that's kind of what that other version was, right? The other version was run away, run away, run away, mask it with everything, drugs, drinking, sex, gambling, business, right? The other side went the other direction. It was My emotions are everything. My emotions are the rulers of my life, and they need to be nurtured. And everyone needs to appreciate and respect my emotions when I feel them. When I feel them, I react to them, and that is my truth. This is the my truth movement. This is the other direction. This is the form of toxic femininity in a way as well, because that obviously birthed the feminism waves and all this other stuff, and it led to the ultimate forms of nurturing. So one was a toxic form of nature, the other form was a toxic form of nurture. And that's what we're seeing right now, is we're actually seeing a competition in a way. Well, more so than anything, the nurture side of things took over as we started to feminize our society more. And this started to get pushed through to the media, to the schools, to the universities, even in our religions and so forth, right? Our churches and so forth. And the nurturing side of things came into context with the law. Okay. Now, what's bad about all of this, about both directions, is this. One, both of them are completely false, first and foremost. But the second one, the over-nurturing one, is way worse off than anything. Because the thing that people have to understand is that, number one, you can't run away from your emotions. You can't. You should not. You can't bury things, because they're going to come up, and they're going to come up in very bad ways. The next thing is, you also can't believe that reality is through how you view your emotions, because that's also not true. So what is the answer? The answer, in my opinion, moving forward, and this is what I'm trying to create. If you read my book, A Patriarch's Vision, Purging Feminism, I talk about how we need to restructure school systems and how we need to restructure society. Moving forward, I believe the foundation of what we need to teach, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's tied into the foundations of things. Like, obviously, I think that people need to learn more about nature and how nature operates. They got to learn about hierarchy. They need to learn about the basic principles of life. Number one is survive. Number two is procreate. You got to learn that everything's a balance, that death is a part of life, and all this other stuff. But when I'm talking specifically about emotions, right, because here's the thing, is that we are conscious creatures. And the thing is, for us to have a civil society, we have to know how to communicate to one another. Communication is key. But here's the thing, is if you don't even know how to communicate with yourself, and you don't even know how to identify your emotions, you are already a net negative to that society. Why? Because you're going to be the type of person that either creates more people that bury their emotions, or like what we're seeing today with all these fucking stupid marching, riot, protest, bullshit, fucking retard people, you are going to become an emotional sponge / tampon, and you're going to just puke your shit all over the place, And you're going to throw tantrums, and you cannot be reasoned with. You're going to be screaming for other people to respect and appreciate your emotions, when the reality is you don't even know what you're talking about. And you're setting up a very bad standard for how to interact with other people. So where do we go from here? What we need to do, and this is where the empathy piece is about to tie in. This is what I'm going to tie it all together in a nice, beautiful little bow. Okay? Because the way that empathy is being used right now is not correct. We'll get there. So where we need to go moving forward is this. We need to teach people that they need to learn how to identify their emotions, and early on in school and in our society, this is how we have to mentor kids 5 to 7 or 8 years old. That's how early. I mean, we could even start earlier, but we need to start teaching them how to identify what they're feeling so that they could put a name on it. Because I guarantee, even the 20 people that are listening right now, if I were to ask you, what are you feeling right now? A lot of you guys probably wouldn't even be able to identify what you're feeling and put a name to it, or ever sat there and thought about those kinds of things. So when a kid 3 years old is sitting over there and he's throwing a tantrum, you don't just walk up to him and hug him until he stops crying. And you also don't walk up to him and slap him in the back of the head and say, shut up, suck it up. Okay? You go over to that child and you say, hey, Listen to me real quick, right? Get their attention. What are you feeling? And they're probably going to keep going and crying because they don't know how to fucking answer the question. And you'll sit there and you'll say, it sounds like you're feeling frustrated right now. Are you feeling frustrated right now? And you're teaching them this word, frustrated. Ooh, I have this feeling frustrated. I have this feeling frustrated. Believe it or not, right? It sounds crazy to sit there and talk to a 3-year-old kid right there and say frustrated, 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 right? But start getting that word in their mind so that the next time it comes up and he starts getting frustrated, he'll be able to communicate. I'm frustrated. The biggest thing, and the reason why we're seeing a lot of this stuff, and the reason why people get anger usually comes from being misunderstood or not being heard. So when you can sit there and you can talk to a child and say, I understand what you're going through. I'm listening to your emotional response right now, but I'm also going to mentor you through this so that you don't become dependent on me. So you say to them, you're frustrated right now, aren't you? You're frustrated. Just breathe through it. Let's figure out why you're frustrated, though. Why are you frustrated? Can you tell me why you're frustrated? 3-year-old kid. Oh, I wanted that cereal. I wanted that cereal. Okay, so you're frustrated because you wanted that cereal. You're angry because you wanted something and you don't think you're going to be able to get it, right? Yeah. Oh my God, we're now having a conversation, right? So I've identified their emotions and I've identified the emotion that they're feeling, and I've identified the reason why they're feeling that emotion. And the second that happens, you can now help guide them through to an actionable, in reality type of solution. Okay. So you're frustrated because you want that cereal. But the thing is, that cereal costs money. Do you have any money? No. So you're expecting me to pay for it then, right? Yes. It's like, well, here's the deal. And then this is where you can start getting into negotiation. This is going to be something that's way better for a civilization. Is where when someone wants something and I want to come to terms with them, right? Because what do I want? I want my child to start behaving, and I want them to turn out to be a better adult and learn how to operate within society better. That should be your goal as a parent. Okay, I'll strike a deal with you. Does that sound good? Yes. Okay. If you behave for the entire week and don't get in any trouble, we're going to come back here next Saturday and I will get you that cereal. Do I have a deal? Will you do that? Right? Now we've started to talk through this stuff. So I've identified the emotion, given them the reason as to why they're feeling that thing. And then I've also given them some action. Now with children, obviously you're kind of bribing them in a way, but it's not really bribery because you're getting something and I'm getting something, right? So they're getting something and I'm getting something. This is business. It's business. It's negotiation. As the child starts to get older, they're going to be able to say, I'm frustrated right now. Oh, that's good. Why are you frustrated? Well, because I want this and I'm not getting it. Okay. I understand your position. What kind of deal can we strike in order to get there? Because I have something I want from you. What are you going to give me for it? How's this business deal sound? So not only does that lead to teaching children how to identify their emotions, and obviously I go deeper into this too. As you start to teach people how to identify their emotions more and understand that their emotions are guides, they're guides. They're just guiding you to understand something deeper about yourself and a better direction you could take. This is part of being conscious. This is the next level. This is the next evolution of humanity, is to be able to start taking a higher level perspective of self-ownership, of being able to identify my own emotions and take control over my mental and emotional state through taking action based off of what my emotions are telling me. And that's what we're going to birth in a new society as well. And the beauty of what I just described to you is now my emotions do not become toxic and bleed over onto other people. And the other great part that I just taught was, in a way, it was nonviolent communication. Now, as you guys know, I am all about violence. I'm all about violence. If you step onto my property, if you step within a 1 arm's distance of me, if you come up with a threatening manner in a threatening manner, if you come within my space and I feel as though you're trying to attack my physical body or do anything to my property or whatever, I'm going to fuck you up, plain and simple. But those should be the last resorts. However, everyone should be trained in that manner. But if we train people both in the emotional aspect of things and in the self-defense violence category, way more peaceful society and our communication. Think about if everyone communicated that way. Sounds a little woo-woo, sounds a little fluffy or whatever, but no one's going to really get taken advantage of. Why? Because if someone understands my pain point and then offers me something, but they also get something in return, that should be a win-win. But it also identifies deals that people may want to or may not want to take. And so fucking be it, right? I declined that offer. That person didn't do anything negative to me. He just threw out a different offer, or he threw out an offer. I can counter offer. I can go and do all this other stuff. Now we're also teaching entrepreneurship. Holy fuck. Look at all of this. Just from this one little example that I gave, you're now teaching all of these self-governing, self-reliant skills that will be better for a free market economy, that would be better for any type of society, all just off of this one little thing. Now, where has this all gone wrong? Empathy has been taught to people. The term empathy is being used right now and it's being misused. The way these liberals and hippies and fucking women are using empathy, honestly, is just merely a form of toxic sympathy. It's toxic sympathy. It is making people believe that I am responsible for your emotions. Whereas what I just identified to you is this. All empathy is understanding what my actions can do to someone else's emotional state. That's it. It's not saying I'm responsible for it. It's just understanding what my actions can possibly do to someone else's emotional state. You guys understand where I'm going with this? I'm not responsible for it. It's just understanding what could happen and fine-tuning it down further. But people will have you believe through this understanding of empathy from the nurturing, toxic feminine side, people will sit there and believe and make you believe and teach you that empathy, let's be honest, because empathy is one of the highest levels of virtue within the SJW structure. They will sit there and think themselves a higher virtued person by believing that because they are quote unquote nice, that they are good people. They try not to do any harm to anyone else because they are empathetic and trying not to cause anyone some type of negative emotion. That just simply isn't true. That's toxic sympathy. That is lowering your state, lowering yourself as an individual, lowering the bar of society, lowering the standard, thinking that I am responsible for how other people feel. And that is a burden that should not be placed on anybody, anyone. Because at the end of the day, you may have an emotional response to something, but at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to find out where that emotional response is coming from, what it's telling you, and what action you have to take marching forward. Mere reaction to emotion is not consciousness. Let me repeat that. Mere reaction to emotion is not consciousness. What type of creatures in this world react? Animals. You're no higher level than an animal if you're just merely reacting to your emotions. And then the worst part is, and through our inability to connect and communicate to our emotional state, we therefore also don't know how to communicate. So when you have someone who quote unquote thinks they're empathetic, reacts to their emotions, and the way that they react is like an animal / a child who has never been taught a level of consciousness, how is it going to be when they're actually trying to communicate to other people that understand the rules of reality and have a higher form of consciousness? It's just not a structure that's going to be able to work out. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's what these riots all stem from as well. For men, when it comes to empathy, it's just merely understanding what your actions could cause, what type of emotional reaction your emotions could cause towards people. And this is great for sales. This is great for seduction. This is great for just life in general, of understanding what your actions could possibly do. Why? Because then you can model your life of how and what you want your influence and impact to be. But unfortunately, right now, under the unfortunate circumstances that we're in right now, where most of our school systems are dominated by women, our media is dominated by a feminist fucking worldview, our laws as well. What they're trying to do and trying to teach you is that you should just lower your presence and feel responsible for everybody else's emotions. That is not empathy. That's a very toxic form of sympathy. And the other thing about sympathy, let's be honest with you, is sympathy isn't really that noble. I see so many people out there that are handing money over to these panhandlers, and it's like, that's them being sympathetic. That's also another form, and this is a covert contract, believe it or not. People think by giving money to these homeless people that God or whoever's watching is just going to give them a little tip in their karma jar. Oh, here you go. Good job, Billy. You gave that fucking bum $5. Good for you. It's like, no. Does that person deserve money? Is that person responsible enough to handle fucking money? No, you're just an enabler. That's your stupid form of sympathy and believing this kind of worldview of, oh, I gave, so I'm going to get. That's just a covert contract. It's just a transaction. You, in a way, just figured, oh, I just bought me some karma. Stupid. It's stupid. Why would you give your money to someone who can't handle fucking money? Why would you encourage someone to continue that lifestyle? That's not virtuous. That is not virtuous. The last thing I would want is for someone to feel sympathy for me and to just hand me money because they think I'm less than, and that's somehow going to fix it. It's like, no. I'm better off going the other direction and having society put some pressure on me to fucking get better. Honestly. Anyway, I think this is a great topic. I got someone on the line right now. If anyone wants to call into the show, technically, I'll post the StreamYard's link again, have you come up on here. But I'm going to bring Kevin on real quick.
What's going on, bro?
How's it going?
I'm doing awesome, man. I just came across your channel. I actually just went on your IG, man. When I first saw you, you kind of gave off the impression. Well, you kind of gave me the impression that you did BJJ. So when I went on your IG, I saw that you were a practitioner, man. But unfortunately for me, man, I stopped about 4 or 5 months ago at White Belt.
Due to COVID?
Yeah, due to COVID. Yeah, I was at a gym, and then prior to that, I had took like a 2-year hiatus. But you know how it is in jiu-jitsu, man. So I want to get back hardcore and
you need to
work my way up. Yeah, oh, definitely, man. I love it.
I've been training hard the past 2 or 3 months.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm very close to my brown belt right now, so I'm just like going hard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, buddy.
That's awesome, bro.
Thanks.
I wanted to, I was doing a few things while I was listening to you, but I wanted to address what you were saying about the greatest generation. Do you believe that generation was So my father's 81. So, he was born, he wasn't a teenager during that era, but he certainly was a child. So he was born in 39.
Okay.
But do you believe that generation had a grit that we, obviously our generation, like the millennials, we don't have that grit, but do you think we were just as capable if we were under those same circumstances? If that makes any sense.
So no, I understand your question.
Mm-hmm.
The obvious answer is no. The obvious answer is no, that we don't have that same level of grit. But what we do have is a higher level of intellect. And we also have technology. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing. Okay. What I'm looking to do is I'm trying to figure out a way to create a society that has the ability to teach children and people that level of grit, but also having a good mixture of the same level of intellect that we have today with the right forms of technology. Because we can also admit right now that we have too much technology that's actually killing us as far as humanity is concerned. It's made us too soft. It's made us too weak. It's made us too brittle. It's made us too comfortable. So the reason why I say that is because what I talked about, having this level of intellect or having this level of consciousness, the greatest generation, they were just doing what they were doing because it was like a response to stimuli, if that makes sense. It was survival. So it's like, all right, we have to be this gritty, we have to be this rugged, but we can't really think about things and our impacts on the future because we kind of just need to survive, right? So it's like now what we've had over this past century, though, the beauty of this and the beauty of having the internet and where everybody's at today is we've been able to see numerous directions that we could go and take data points from all of those things. And now we can move forward understanding what type of society we need to create and what things we need to implement into those societies. You feel me?
Yeah, I definitely do. Yep.
So like, for instance, I talk about this in my book, but one of the biggest things that's missing that was probably still kind of around during that time frame with the greatest generation was initiatory rites in the manhood. And the father was also around to teach the children some central tenets about masculinity. Does it make sense?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely listening, man.
So the thing is, too, that a lot of people don't realize where, like, for grit to be given. I talked to one of my guys about this earlier. He asked me about my thoughts on willpower. And I said, willpower is all fine and good, but discipline's way better. Because the thing with willpower is it's kind of one of those things that you either have it or you don't, and it's easy to kind of quit on, but anyone can formulate discipline. Now, in our society today, a lot of people will sit here and say, oh, grit is one of those same things. But we've also learned that grit is teachable. But where did a lot of these people learn grit from? And a lot of these kids learn grit from waking up at 5 a.m. with their father, watching their father work hard, watching their father face different levels of failures and defeats and so on, and then just keep doing it and just keep going. So in a way, that attitude, because we are still monkeys, believe it or not, monkey see, monkey do. And men specifically, we learn more through mirroring than women do. So that's one of the big things that actually needs to be brought back in, I believe, is putting our kids through hardships, but then also having them understand and see that adults go through this stuff and having some level of like multi-generational masculine mentorship placed into it.
So my father definitely, he's still alive. He still works. And, my father was pretty much a jack of all trades. So he knew electrical work. He knew masonry. He knew carpentry. He knew
Yeah.
plumbing. He actually worked in those fields. He recently retired about 10 years ago. And
Jeez.
so, you know, when I was a kid growing up, you know, my father would be up early in the morning, whether it was doing landscaping or some sort of project, and he would wake me and my little brother up, or we would just get up, you know, he would get up at like 5 o'clock, but we'd get up like at 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And we would get up and work with him. And, you know, he was the kind of father, well, not kind of because he's still alive, but he was a father that he kept it real with us. Like he didn't sugarcoat shit. So I'm 5'7", right?
Mm-hmm.
So my dad is 5'9", maybe. So I remember one time growing up, and I'm gonna hit it on the nail with this one, but you know, I would be outside playing basketball in the backyard, and my dad would come home from work, and he'd say, you know, you don't want to really waste your time doing an activity that's not going to lead you to the NBA, because like that was my goal. Now, as a kid, you know, I'm not gonna lie to you, that really hurt me as a 10, 11-year-old, because my dad already knew that I wasn't gonna be super tall, because my mom is like 4'11", bro, and so my dad.
Your mom Asian?
So
is your mom Asian?
No, she's not. No, we're black. No, yeah, but So
I don't think I've ever seen a fucking 4'11" black woman.
Yeah, well, she's about 4'11". Yeah.
Holy shit.
And my dad always jokes with her about, maybe, you know, you came from a pygmy tribe in Africa. But so, you know, my dad, so, you know, I'm the same age as you. So when I've gotten older, I realized that my dad was more or less, he was red pilled, I guess, without knowing he was red pilled. Like he kept it real. Right. And I feel like a lot of the issues with today's society and what you were talking about with the technology is that, you know, with Instagram and with all this social media, it's showing you mansions, it's showing you Lamborghinis, and it's showing you a false sense of reality in terms of, okay, so if you're a 10-year-old and you're looking at this, you think as a 10-year-old that you're going to have this Lamborghini and you're going to have this mansion, not knowing that they only make 2,000 Lamborghinis a year. But but you know, I actually was a teacher, right? So I would tell kids who were always sad about certain things, like, you know, oh, I'm never gonna have this, I'm never gonna have that, or no, I'm sorry, they would say things that I want to have that, and I'm saying like, well, it's nothing wrong with visualizing that, or it's nothing wrong with trying to manifest that, but the honest to God's truth is that Lamborghinis represent a very, 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 very small percentage of automobiles on the planet, and the people who own them represent a very, 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 very small percent. Dude, do you realize I got fired from my job as a teacher because I told them kids that? Like, that's how much of a pussification, you know, how much of a pussified generation we live in right now.
And this is something that I say, these school systems are not meant for men. They're meant for women. They're meant for people that don't grasp reality, that don't want different levels of, because that's how we operate. As men, we operate with objective truths that are a part of reality.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with saying there might be one person in this class that can become that type of person.
Right.
But to sit there and give the hope and the dream to all these other people, we are better off, like what you're talking about, having people, I don't want to say having people set up for mediocrity.
Right.
But I mean, Pareto principle, man, honestly, fucking 80% of people are going to fall under the top 20%, period.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep.
We're better off. And you want to know the reason why America is actually so great in comparison to the majority of countries in the world?
Well, I would say capitalism, but what do you think?
Well, you're right. You're right. Because the thing with capitalism is this: we have a 3-tier system as far as our strata is concerned. Does it make sense?
Oh yeah, yeah.
We have lower class, poor. We have middle class, which makes up the large swath of people, and then we have the upper class. In most other countries, you have just two. You have the haves and the have-nots. And the beauty of it is, and the reason why, you know, I was a Marine. In the Marine Corps, we say NCOs are the backbone of the Marine Corps, right? The corporals and the sergeants.
Right. I'm familiar with
which is essentially the middle class. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the same thing that I'm trying to say here. America's backbone is the middle class. And the problem that we have right now is with our kind of communistic type of thing that we're trying to bring in right now is we are killing the middle class. Killing the middle class.
Tell me about it, right?
Before, you know, during the Reagan era and even a little bit earlier, and listen, I'm not going to say that a lot of these people were great, but what I am going to say is the best way to have a good, solid, stable society is to praise and build and maintain the middle class as best as fucking possible. Because they're the backbone. It's best to make that mass group kind of the celebrities.
Right.
Not the celebrities like what we see today, but to praise them and to try to give them as much kudos as possible. Does it make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
To take as much of a tax burden off of these people as possible. To make it so that someone could be a blue collar worker and to have a single family or a single person income, but still be able to have 2 kids and a house that they could pay off in 15 years and a car or 2 and a few nice amenities and a vacation a year. And that's, honestly, there's not people that have the same level of what's it called that I do, right? I'm a very different person. I've sacrificed so much shit in my life to a different level. But there's a lot of people out there that at 23, 25, 28 want to get married and have kids and live that kind of middle-class dream. And that's fine. That's fine. We should allow that, and we should take as little or as much of a burden off of those people as possible. So with that said, going back to it, the thing and the fact of the matter is, with all these participation trophies that we have, with the removal of PE from schools where people are able to start seeing that, oh my God, there is a pecking order, right? All this shit that's going on. We're removing the reality of people's pecking order and positions in society from them.
Yeah.
So much so that they get an inflated sense of ego and an inflated sense of entitlement. And because it's all inflated and they're not grounded, now, just like what you're talking about, they dream of and they believe that they're going to be the CEO of fucking Twitter, right? The CEO of fucking Facebook or whatever. And that they're going to have Lamborghinis and all this other shit. One other thing that you got to talk about too is this. You said there's only 2,000 of these Lamborghinis made. A lot of people don't I saw this video yesterday. 2 girls went on the TikTok that ended up going on to Twitter. And these girls took out loans, student loans, $80,000 10 years ago for their student loans at 7% interest rate. And they're crying because they've already paid $120,000 and they still got $76,000 left to pay. Most of these people don't realize how much shit costs and what it costs when you fucking buy with interest.
Right.
Next, people don't realize buying that fucking Lamborghini for $300,000. They don't realize every 3,000 miles, you got to bring that thing in to get serviced. They got to pull the whole engine out, laser balance everything, change the oil, all this other shit, put new tires on it, and not after 3,000 miles, but you know how much that costs? 10 grand to maintain that shit, to drive it only 3,000 fucking miles, right?
Yep.
Then insurance. Then how much interest are you paying when you do get this and all this other shit?
Absolutely.
You want those nice luxurious things, but you don't realize also the responsibility that comes with it. You're better off starting off with a goddamn, like I did, right? A fucking Civic, right? For me, it was a fucking Subaru station wagon, 91. And having to deal with understanding gas, understanding maintenance, understanding insurance, understanding mileage and when these things fucking break down and all that other shit, right? And then slowly stepping up. But again, what do they want to shoot for automatically? They got the big dreams of going and getting that Ferrari, going and getting that fucking Lambo, getting that M6, getting all that other shit.
Right. Not even understanding that the masses.
But they don't understand the cost.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand the cost. They also don't understand, like, these people that fucking went and got these student loans, they're still paying them off.
Right.
You got a job. You're like, oh, I'll take out $80,000 because I'll probably be making $65,000 a year. Well, to start off. Well, you're not going to be paying $65,000 towards that loan. And not to mention that $65,000 after taxes ain't shit. And then let's throw in rent. Then let's throw in your fucking habitual fucking 3 days a night or 3 days a week of fucking going out drinking. Then, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's why it turns into 10 years of you fucking paying that shit off and you're still not even paying off principal. They're like, oh, I'll get a $65,000 job, a $100,000 job will be fine. $80,000, no worries. It's like, no. That's bad news. That's really bad news. That's crazy. I can't believe you got fired for that. What are you doing now?
I just trade stock options, man. That's all I do for the most
Good
part
for
right
you.
now. And I just started my own, content channel about a week ago. So I'm just reaching out to other content creators. Hey, I wanted to ask you something else, man. You had brought up a good point about, masculinity and sort of like a rites of passage, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, I'm gonna take it back to when I was a kid, because I understand what you're talking about. So you're, I believe, 35, right?
Yep, 35.
Okay. So I'm 35 too, right? So we are that latchkey generation, the generation where we will be lost all day until, the sun goes down or the street lights went out and you had to go home to eat, or the only time you really went home was to eat.
Right.
And so I remember when I was a kid, about maybe 4 or 5, I remember when my dad stopped picking me up, right? And I believe that was a, at the time when you're a child, you think that's
like picking you up,
picking
as in
up, like
actually lifting you up,
lifting me up, right? Like lifting me up. And I believe, at the time, because I remember how traumatic it was, because your entire existence as a child is based around your parents,
right?
So when your father stops picking you up, it's well, at least in my opinion, it was terrifying, because I felt a sense of being alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what it really does is it really conditions your brain to see the real for what it really is, that you are really here by yourself.
Uh-huh.
I mean, of course, your parents are still going to be there, but as a child, but it's teaching you that one day you're going to become an adult.
Right.
And one day your parents are going to pass away. One day, whatever's going to happen, and you as a man, you need to stand on your own square. And so I think my interpretation of what you were saying about the whole rites of passage, especially with the father being in the house, is a woman cannot teach those values. No. And what I've noticed, especially, I don't know if you grew up around, Black Americans, but with me being Black and being around, Blacks all my life for the most part, you can tell which households were weak households and which ones were strong households.
Sure.
Whereas, I beg your pardon?
Tell me specifically how you can tell that.
Okay, so for example, before we moved to the where we lived before, it was still the inner city, but it wasn't that bad. But before we moved to the suburbs, a lot of my friends who lived in the neighborhood, the males, you can automatically tell if they were going to be gay growing up. And it was because they didn't have a father figure or strong male figures in the household. And a lot of these households that had single parent households or a beta male provider who was probably a stepfather or just, having sex with the mother, those boys tended to be weaker boys. Like, they tended to be the boys who didn't want to wrestle. They didn't want to slap box. They didn't engage in fighting. They didn't engage in conditioning, like rites of passage conditionings that will lead you to be men. So now when I see these men as adults, now when I, occasionally run into, some people I grew up in my old neighborhood, it's like, damn, they're weak as fuck. And it's because of their conditioning growing up. And so when I taught in school, I saw the same thing. I grew up where, of course, when we grew up, teachers really couldn't hit you, but they still did. I grew up when male teachers used to grab you by the shoulder or grab your shirt, from the lapel,
hem you up.
And hem you up, right? Hem you up.
Yeah.
Man, these kids now, you can't even talk to them and try to like school them anymore.
Right.
And I feel like
you can't even criticize them.
You can't criticize.
Criticism now, especially because now everything's moving over towards a feminine dominated world set, mindset, value set.
Right.
Criticism to a woman is hate. Does it make sense?
Oh, it definitely is.
Criticism to a woman is hate. So hate to women also equals violence. So therefore, criticism is violence.
Right.
So that's what we're teaching kids today. Criticism is violence.
And you can't say anything about it. Or to them about anything that deals with them.
Right. Not to mention, as I discussed earlier, these kids are emotionally out of control because no one has taught them how to identify their emotions, and then by themselves. So what you're talking about right now too, as well as this, and I'm going to actually bring Steven on too. He can come onto the stream.
Salute, Steven.
What it comes down to, and when your father started to put you down at 4 years old, he was prepping your mind to get ready to understand exactly like what you said. I'm no longer going to be taken care of specifically, I'm going to be mentored. A
Right.
lot of stuff is going to be on me to learn my own lessons and extrapolate the lessons and ask for help when I need help. But I'm not going to be dependent on anyone else for my survival.
Right.
Now, I talk about it in my book. I say that because believe it or not, from age 0 to 7 is when a child develops their personality. At 7 years old, 95% of their personality is developed. So you don't want to go too hard on a child early on as far as individuality is concerned, early on, because the age 0 to 7 time frame is kind of when they should have this, and I'm going to use the term solipsistic, where they believe that they are the center of the world until they have a fully developed personality and their brain has developed. From then, that's when the father should be stepping in. Now, I don't mind the 4 to 5 year old type of thing because I agree with your father there. I don't think after 4 or 5, the child should be getting picked up. It's kind of like a slow weaning over to the masculine now from the feminine, right?
Do you mean picked up from school?
I'm sorry, what? No, picked up as in like being lifted off the ground and coddled,
okay.
As far as like, I'm going to pick you up and carry you places, or I'm going to pick you up and make you feel better this way. It's like, no. Right? That's the slow, it's like the removal of the binky, right? It's a slow weaning process type of deal to say, hey, we're going to start removing some of these comforts so that you can start to understand this worldview of being an individual. Now, after 7 is when the father needs to start stepping in more and needs to start teaching the children the rules of society, what's expected of you and how you need to behave going out into that reality. Does it make sense?
It makes perfect sense to me, bro.
After 7 is when that needs to start happening, and it's not hammer nail. It's instead through mentorship. And that's the biggest difference that I had in how I was raised too. My father believed that it was hammer nail. No discussion, no whatever. Everything was through violence and intimidation and fear.
Your dad sounds like he was very strict.
Very, very strict. Now, you know, I've been doing some thinking over the last couple weeks. I've learned more lessons from my father than I gave him credit. There were some things that he did right. There were some things that he imparted in me that were good in comparison to where we see today, where parents aren't being strict enough and not teaching their children grit and not teaching them discipline and not teaching them other stuff. However, there was no room for negotiation and there was no room for mentorship. It was just straight totalitarianism in my household, right? It was like even the slightest twinge of maybe me not stepping to at the right exact second would result in violence. You feel me?
That was a lot different from my situation when I was growing up. My dad was actually extremely lax whenever he had to do anything. And the only time that he would ever punish me was at the behest of my mother.
That sucks because that means that your mother was the
one wearing the pants.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrible. Terrible.
Anytime I tried to go to my dad for advice, I didn't understand what my dad was telling me because he just was like locked into this different world than I was, it seemed.
Yeah. Your dad seems like the type of person that just wanted to be led and just led through life. Like he was just coasting.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, that's not good, man, because the father needs to be the leader of the household. He needs to be a captain. He needs to be the one that picks the destination and we're all going there. Right? And the thing about being a good leader, though, being a good leader is all about delegation. So everyone has their duties, everyone has their roles, everyone has the expectations placed on them. But if you micromanage, guess what you end up creating? Resentment. Because people just want to be told, here's the task, this is what I'm expecting, and this is the time frame I'm expecting it done from. And then they want to have the ability to have the creative freedom and genius to be able to do things on their own terms.
That's what made my last job so miserable, because I had a supervisor that worked next to me, and all she would ever do is just micromanage my work.
It's terrible. And women are micromanagers because women aren't leaders. Women aren't leaders. They don't understand. It's just like, being in the military. One thing, the worst part about having a female that was in charge was she had this chip on her shoulder that she had to try to pretend to be a man, and she also had to make up for the fact of being a woman and the men's perspective of her being weak. So now what did she do? She interpreted masculinity in the wrong sense by going high and to the right, and then added another little like more to it because she felt as though, oh, I need to also let them know I'm not a weak woman. And that's what it comes to. That's what it comes down to.
I walked out of a recruitment office because there was a female staff sergeant in there who was a recruiter. And man, she was about 5'2", about 120 pounds, if that. And she walked around like she had an Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Olympia chest. She was talking high and mighty. I said, I'm out of here. And I what'd you say?
I said, that's disgusting.
Oh, yeah, she was just so arrogant to like everybody in there. She was just talking so like arrogant. And I'm like, oh, I'm not doing this shit. You know, I'll never forget it. Bro.
Yeah, it's off-putting. And this is the thing that most men don't realize is that it is off-putting. And you can admit that. Mm-hmm. Now, Kevin, I want to say one thing to you, too, because you brought up a huge point, especially when it comes to, we obviously understand right now, within the Black community, 74 to 77% of children are now being born out of wedlock.
I think it's even higher than that, though, but go ahead.
Which means potentially that we have 77% of Black children that are being born into fatherless homes.
Okay,
now, when we have that happen, what you're talking about and what you noticed, the thing that you got to realize is that you're going to see two extremes. And you pointed out one extreme. Mm-hmm. You pointed out the extreme of a beta boy that has been subjected to toxic femininity, and he has to choose one direction. He either needs to become a toxic male, the gangbanger thug type of individual, or he needs to become a weak, feminized male in order to appease his mother. And that's kind of the dichotomy right now that we're seeing within the Black community as well. There's not a whole lot that's fallen in the middle. And the beauty of this is that we found the culprit. And the culprit happens to be single motherhood.
Yeah. So the problem is that, and I don't want to get too deep, but I tend to.
That's how we do on this channel. We break everything down to the deepest.
So what you're seeing is, okay. So Black American women that I've experienced, because I hate to talk in generalized terms, but it may come off generalized. So
we kind of have
Black American women are very emotional, and I think it's to overcompensate for a lot within the Black community. But Black women want to be men, they want to be feminine, they want to be bosses. You know, I don't know which. You know, they don't want to be domestic, but they want a man to treat them with chivalry. So nevertheless, you have these communities where, you know, you have neighborhood upon neighborhood of single parent households, and the boys that are raised amongst these women develop feminine traits because they don't go through rites of passage. Right.
They don't have a father figure or a masculine figure in the household to mentor and show them things.
So the thing about, like, let's say a George Floyd, right? Now here goes a man who's 6 foot goddamn 4. He's 260 pounds. He's on drugs. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think he was raised in a secular, secular home, or he may have not had a strong father figure in his life. So he reacted like a woman. But the difference is that when a man is 6'4" and acts emotional, his response is going to be dealt with differently from other men in authoritative positions. Correct. And now you have these white men who are in these inner city communities who don't live in the community, who don't understand the culture. I can only imagine how terrified they are. So when I argue with other people who are, you know, Black people about it, they get mad at me. They call me all types of names, et cetera, et cetera.
Let me ask you a question. Did you see the body cam footage of the arrest?
I've seen from 2 angle points. And he was resisting arrest. Yeah, I saw the body cam when they opened the door. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, honestly, they were treating him very, very well. Treating him very, very well, which leads me to believe, and of course, I do jujitsu too. Putting a knee on someone's back like that or on their shoulder, granted, not a good thing to do for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Right.
But I am more privy to believe that he died from having that much fentanyl in his system. That's what my belief system is on that one. Right? Now, so this doesn't go into a murder, for instance, but let's go into the one the other day where you had that guy that was surrounded by 3 black chicks, right? This Jacob guy up in Wisconsin that's causing all the riots now.
Yeah.
Who was reacting to authority the way he did by kind of like throwing a tantrum, storming off and reaching
Right.
into a car and all this other shit. And he got shot 7 times.
Right.
It's like kind of like what you're talking about.
When I was a kid.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah,
go ahead.
Well, if I can further expound upon it, when I was a kid, my dad owned several properties in the area that we lived in, and it was one area where he had rented it out to one of his sons. Well, I have a half brother, but he had rented it out to my half brother, and my half brother had a family. But this neighborhood was very like, this was like the hood part of where I live at, and one thing my parents always told me is if you're ever over there playing with, I call them my cousins, but they're really my nieces and nephews, but we're all the same age, right? But he said, if you're ever in that neighborhood playing, never, ever pretend like you're pointing your finger at the cop. Never. And I never understood it as a kid, and my parents drove that home into me until, especially until I got my car, right? So I got a car. Sure. They bought me a car when I was 15. I was able to drive it when I was 16. And my parents always taught me, if you ever get pulled over, make sure you keep your hands on the steering wheel. Make sure you don't make any sudden movements. And, of course, I'm 16, so I would speed. I would get pulled over in different areas around, different suburbs. And I would get pulled over, and whatever the police officer asked me, I would just do it. If he asked me to go into the glove compartment, I would go into the glove compartment very slow. And I think it was just a natural thing. But remember, my dad had taught me order growing up. And so I think with that order, I didn't argue with the police officer. Like, there were times where I thought the police just pulled me over randomly. But looking back on it, I was speeding. But nevertheless, when I've gotten pulled over before, and the officer is asking you a question, I don't get smart with the officer because I already know the judicial system. The officer, you go to court to argue your case. You don't argue your case with the officer. I did that when I was 16 years old. But I feel like a lot of women who are black, I hate to say it, they don't teach their children that because they are always in conflict anyway. They want drama. They want smoke because they know that there's no responsibility with it. Now,
women have 2 weapons. They have sex and tears. Now, whenever a situation happens, a woman is also very, especially now in the world, because they've been so how can I explain it? Not coddled, but people have been very much coddled from understanding violence. That things can happen like this, right? So women think that they can go in and they could break up a fight. They think that they could just scream and yell and oh my God and start crying and everyone's going to stop. The large majority of the time, that's not going to happen. And what you're saying right now too is when these guys that are raised by women that are taught to just emotionally react to a situation, they go and do that, but then they end up meeting the wrong side.
Right, because men meet
violence.
Yeah,
because men are going to be violent with men.
Yeah, right.
It seems to me like there are an overwhelming amount of black men that just seem to act like overgrown children, especially with the fighting with the police, the committing the crimes all the time, and just the general rebellion.
Is this Pat?
No, this is Stephen.
Oh, Stephen. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it just seems to me like that. They're like always in rebellion all the time, and it seems to be for always petty reasons. It's not like, oh, they're trying to take away my guns. It's, oh, they're trying to arrest me because I have a warrant because I haven't paid so many unpaid. I have so many unpaid parking tickets.
Or I'm on parole. Or I'm going to go back to jail.
Yeah, because like I said, Stephen, before, like in the black community, and like I said, I grew up in the black community, and I am black. I've seen it. It's because of men. Black men generally are raised by women, 75% of the cases, and they have feminine traits, and because of those feminine traits, they act out. There's law and order, and I feel like with being black, we, in our community, it's almost like we're not taught law and order at a large scale. I mean, of course, I was.
Well, and then we got to throw in something additional to that. You've also been taught that you've been victims of the system. So now, I gotta be tough to this system. This system's not gonna punk me. So I'm gonna show the system what's up. And worse off right now with martyring these guys. These guys are all like, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? Oh, you're telling me I'm gonna get $2 million in my bank account if I get shot 7 times in the shoulder for overreacting? Okay, cool. It's the same thing with Christine Blasey Ford getting $2 million for a false rape accusation.
What's her name?
Christine Blasey Ford.
I'm gonna look that up real quick.
Justice Kavanaugh type of thing. It happens all over the place. These people are martyring. They're martyring people that are doing the wrong things in society. And it goes back big time to everything that we've deduced right now.
Yeah.
What exactly like what you just said. Listen, I'm white, but
really?
yeah, exactly. I'm 200.
No shit.
I'm 200. I'm 230, 240 pounds. I got tattoos on my knuckles. Right. I drive pretty fast. I'm big. I'm aggressive. All this other shit. Right. Now, cops, when they deal with me, are usually expecting. What are they expecting?
Well, you look probably, like. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
Yeah, they're probably expecting some type of altercation. Right. Especially if I got like my traps up and my shoulders out and I'm just sitting there and I'm kind of like huffing and puffing and doing shit, they're going to be looking to fuck me up just as easily. Why? Because they got the authority. They don't want to lose their authority, right? So it's best to just kind of like center your demeanor. I got caught fucking speeding. I obviously did something wrong in their eyes. I'm not going to be able to argue my way out of it. Let me ask you a question. It's the same thing like in the NFL or the NBA.
Sure.
A ref calls you on something. How many people have ever argued their way out of what the ref fucking called them on?
It rarely happens unless
I've never seen it. I've never seen it.
Okay.
Never seen it. Never seen a ref say, you know what, dude? You're right. You're right. You didn't grab him. You didn't slap him. You didn't do that wrong. Let me just take this flag back and just replay the whole play. Like no worries. Right? You actually have a better chance with a cop, honestly. But the best way to do that is kind of like what I just talked about in the beginning of this. Hey, officer, listen, I apologize. Yeah, what I was doing was a little bit reckless. I don't really have much of an excuse. Just to plead my case here, I just asked for a little bit of leniency. This is my first time really ever getting pulled over for this. Leave it at that. Don't ask for anything.
I always thought it was kind of like a situation where you just kind of like shut up and see what happens. And I mean, anytime I've gotten pulled over, that's usually the case for me. And then
especially in today's world with all the heat that's going on the cops, you're going to be night and day above so many other people if you're just sitting there respectful. I'm not sitting there saying slob the guy's knob and be like, oh, blue lives matter. Oh my God, yeah. Listen, I definitely believe that that police officers need to be taught de-escalation. There needs to be a lot more stuff done when it comes to it. We need to really greatly reduce laws down to the fact of if it's a nonviolent crime, we don't really need to be fucking charging people fines and fucking people's lives up and all this other stuff. Okay? Perfect. Takes pressure off the cops, takes the pressure off the people. Okay? If I'm not stealing or damaging someone's property, if it's nonviolent, there doesn't really need to be a law for that. But anyway, you get pulled over, your best to just be like, hey, my bad. I've gotten beaten by the cops before. Half of it was my fault. Half of it was their fault. I'm going to be honest with you. I could sit there and say it was the cops' fault the entire time by instigating a fight with me, but I was stupid enough to take the bait. Stupid enough. Huh?
This should be like police interaction 101. Anything they do is going to be right in the eyes of the law, period. You need to assume that. And if you're getting beat, you just get beat. You just lay there, you get beat, okay? Because you're gonna be able to deal with it later, but you're not gonna fight the law and win.
You fight back. They have guns, they have tasers, and they have batons and numerous people.
Right. Yeah. One time
do your best to protect yourself, but
one time I actually got like assaulted by some dude, right? And he like knocked me to the ground. He was trying to steal my wallet and such, but like the police thought that both of us like started it, and so they picked both of us up. They put me in a headlock, and they dragged me to the car, and then they like patted me down and everything. Even though I had done nothing wrong, right? They still were like treating me like I was, just like the other guy who was committing the crime. But they still ended me up letting me go at the end of it, right?
For sure.
Hey, Corey. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Can I? Okay. Okay. I don't want to get too far off in the left with this, but
it's fine.
You had spoke about. So I guess we had spoke about the situation with you had mentioned like being a martyr, right? Like we've martyred George Floyd, right?
Yeah.
Is that my? I don't think that's my mic.
No, I got him.
Okay.
I had to silence Pat a little bit.
So
Go ahead.
So you have mentioned the idea that George Floyd has become a martyr. So with many other people, I'll tell you this about the Black community that I've always hated, and I've always respected other communities for this. Now it may seem silly, but there is a separation between the criminal element and civilian element amongst societies, right? So like in the Italian race, right, or the Italian culture, or ethnicity, or ethnic group, way back in the day.
My people.
Oh, you're Italian. Okay, so
Yeah,
so you know what
like,
I'm about to get at.
Like real Italian from
Like real
New York
Italians.
City. Yeah. That's where my. Go ahead, keep going.
There was always a separation between the mob and the civilians, right? So civilians don't march when John Gotti, Italian civilians didn't march when John Gotti was sentenced to prison. You know, there was just no concept of that because they're not a part of that world. They're not a part of the underworld. The same thing with the Yakuza in Japan. I'm pretty sure if a Yakuza member is killed by the police, which I'm pretty sure it happens, the overall Japanese civilian society doesn't give a shit. Or I'm not saying they don't give a shit. It's just that they don't have a concept of, okay, they're a part of our, they're a part of us. Because here goes the thing. George Floyd was engaged in criminal activity. He was engaged in criminal activity at the time and previously before that. I don't know if you know this, but he had went to prison for robbing a pregnant lady and putting a gun to her stomach. Did you know that?
Stomach, yep.
A lot of times,
her house with 3 other guys, and they went in there and they were looking for drugs and money.
Criminal activity, right?
Yep. They broke into her house and held her hostage while they ransacked her place.
Right. So here goes.
And it's not just Floyd. It's like almost every single person who has been raised up as this like innocent victim has been like a genuinely bad person. No matter like if they were Black or if they were not Black, they would be a bad person regardless if they had.
Right. Well, we're seeing this right now too with this Kyle fucking kid that just shot a fucking child molester. What else? A woman beater and a fucking other guy. Right. These commies. And those guys are being held up as martyrs too within this anti-fascist type of stuff. It's like, guys, you can't be having these people, these morally corrupt individuals as saints, unfortunately, right? It's like sometimes you got to sit here and you got to consider this person's actions have led to these consequences. It's not to say, and this isn't to say, just because you got a rap sheet and you did something bad in your past that you're automatically deemed a bad person.
Right.
If you paid your dues to society, fine. But if you continue to engage in the same type of activity, I'm sorry, I can't feel any type of sympathy for you.
So you get my point on the whole thing between the civilians and the criminal world.
Can I just speak on something real quick that Kevin and Sales brought up?
Do it.
You just said you just said what I've been saying for like ever since Black Lives Matter started. Like because I had a lot of friends that were on that social justice train. It was all type of people, Africans, Mexicans, Americans, all, they're all marching because there was something that happened in Jacksonville. A guy rammed head on to a cop car, and he got out and the cop shot him. So, and then they marched in the street, but the irony is that they marched on Sunday when everything was closed. They didn't want to cause any upheaval. Anyway, so Black Lives Matter never matters when what they say on YouTube when Pookie kills Ray Ray. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Absolutely.
I lived in the so-called ghetto neighborhood for 4 years because it was cheap. My cousin lived around the corner from me. He told, I'm losing track here, but there was a murder, a double murder. This girl was supposed to set up another girl, but she took too long and they pulled up and they killed both of them. My cousin wasn't there, told me and some other people literally the whole story, names, faces, what kind of weapon they used, where she got hit at, where the other girl got hit at, and nobody told. Nobody went to the news. Nobody called 1-800-TIPS. Nobody marched. They had a vigil on the block on the corner where one of the girls died at, and my cousin even had videos in his phone of one of the chicks. Like, I just, it was like a stud dyke chick. He's like, I used to fuck with her so hard, blah, blah, blah. We were best friends. I can't believe that shit happened. That's fucked up. But however, then they could tell on Trevor or Jay or whoever the fuck it was that did it. But when like you said with the George Floyd, which I think is a psyop. When that shit happens, motherfuckers go crazy. Like, oh my gosh, they killed a black man. Oh, this motherfucker putting himself in the line of fire. If I go play in traffic, they not gonna, you know what I'm saying? If I go play in traffic, like, oh, these murderers,
Well, this goes back to one big thing right now, though. So it goes back to the fact that we are rewarding victimhood and a victimhood status within our community. And then the next thing is this, and this is kind of like what Kevin Sales is talking about right now. You know, within the Italian community, whatever community, Japanese or whatever, there's been some level of respect for civility, right? You keep saying civilian, but remember, what's the root word of civilian? Civil.
Yep.
Civility. Now, I would say, and this is what's been kind of painted within the world today, that people consider it to be white culture to be civil. So they blame it and they say, oh, that's white culture.
Well, I mean, what's so wrong with white culture then, right?
Because we living in a community together, we all need to be civil for things to flow properly.
That's fact.
Right?
Yes.
But there's also within the black community, and this is why people are martyring criminals and gangsters and so forth, is because in a way that feels like that's supposed to be the identity of black culture.
Yes.
Denying white culture. When the reality is all it comes down to is civility and lack of civility. It's not a culture thing. It's not a culture thing. It shouldn't be a culture thing. It should be, do I want to live in a civil society or do I want to live in a chaotic society?
We live in hell on earth. But let me tell you some crazy shit I just read. Thomas Sowell, well, not read, but audiobook. Thomas Sowell, Black Rednecks, White Liberals. The same shit you literally just said. There was a group of people that moved from England to the American South or to the southern United States that taught the southern population that culture. So what you call ghetto black culture is fucking from England. The slang, the sexual deviancy, the lack of decency, and you know what I'm saying, morality. That shit comes from England, based off of what he said in the book. And of course, it got adopted and self-refueled over time. So now it's just like a little a snowball effect. But
I would say it goes even deeper. There's another group of people that I'm going to blame it on, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, they don't want to get this shit ended abruptly.
You don't want to get not demonetized. I probably won't wake up tomorrow. But it's true. But here's the thing. Let's break that down though, because we have two white guys on here and two black guys right now that are having a discussion about race relations in America, and we're having a civil discussion. And are any one of us at each other's throats or anything like that right now? Or are we having a conversation that's actually moving the goalpost in the right direction?
It's definitely civil and it's definitely moving the goalpost.
And that's the beauty of civility. That's the beauty of civility, is that when you are civil with one another, you can have what are considered in today's world charged or emotionally charged conversations that aren't really that emotionally charged, that are like, oh yeah, absolutely, let's do shit to fucking make things better. But when you bring one person in here who's uncivil, anybody, doesn't matter what race they're from, because now we're starting to see it from fucking idiot white leftards, right? That are just being fucking idiots that you can't have a discussion with them. And it's like the second that happens, you have to boot those people out, unfortunately. Now, the other perspective too is this: when it comes to civility and all this other shit, we could be having this conversation and I could have my opinions, but because I'm white and you're black, the person who is not civil and wants to see things in the scope of race, they'll sit there the entire time and never agree with me because they don't want to give a white guy a perspective on race relations. Does it make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
What type of a community does that really build? And it actually creates the opposite type of community that you're trying to build right now, when you come in and not be civil and throw those kinds of things out there.
Agree.
So I think that's what needs to be propped up, and I think that's actually what needs to be propped up within the black community. I think we're starting to see that right now. I hate to get into the political side of things because I am not a very political person. I don't believe in political parties, but we are starting to see mass amounts of numbers of black people go over to the Republican Party right now because they're kind of sick and tired of living in this chaotic uncivil.
Republican was the black party to begin with.
It was the black party to begin with, but I'll tell
agree.
you this though, a lot
Until
of
welfare came in.
yeah, a lot of black men are going over to the Republican Party because a lot of, you know, at the end of the day, despite the fact that a lot of black men have been feminized by single parent households, a man is still a man. A man still has that biology to think logically. And so,
and conserve.
So you have a party that literally it embraces all types of filthy behavior. It embraces, I mean, I don't know if anybody on the panel is gay or not, but like transsexual. I mean, the left is embracing transsexualism. Like it's almost like it's as normal as getting a loaf of bread from the store. Right. It's sickening to me. I don't know. I don't want to apologize. You know, I don't know the scope of the channel.
You apologize. People
they
should
want
know
men to
Go ahead.
reject. They want men to reject their manhood.
Right.
Like they've been trying to program men to reject their manhood for the last 30 years, and this is only just the next step on that. It's to make them entirely dependent on the system, because then they have to get hormone pills. They have to be accepted. They have to get all this, surgery. So they become like 100% dependent, 100% consumerist.
Correct.
Like,
you guys saw this. I don't know if you saw this thing, but here in California, they had a young black kid in juvenile detention that they were injecting estrogen into.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
They said he has this. He has OCC or OCD or something like that, and not even a fucking trial or anything on it. They're just like, oh, let's just give him estrogen and this might work. I think they injected him 16 times. The kid ended up developing breast tissue and becoming more fucking suicidal and emotional. They sued the fuck out of him. But that set a precedent. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to literally remove his testosterone, thinking that that's going to make him more docile.
Did you hear about the court case in Texas with the
father?
Yeah.
The divorce. Yeah, dude, that mom is a fucking crazy, toxic cunt.
She
should be strung up by her fucking toes in the town square. That's how bad a person she is.
But the court ordered this. The court ordered this boy to get these estrogen injections now, and puberty blockers, and all of this is coming out of the pocket of the father too.
The big thing that most people don't understand, I listen, thanks to one of my buddies, I listen to this guy, Think Before You Sleep. I think he's along the lines of like Sandman and TFM, like kind of grew up with those guys and hung with them for a little bit. But he has this whole thing where he talks about women and toxic women and all this other shit. I've actually come to the realization that women in today's world have been so brought up to hate men, and their biggest fear is letting men like take control. So the woman's biggest fear, and like I talk about this often with my guys, a woman's biggest fear is dying alone or ever being alone. A man's greatest fear is being a loser, right? Being like the lowest tier man on the totem pole in society, right? Men can be alone, but if you're in a society, if you're the loser of the pack, you're pretty much genes are written, right? Women, on the other hand, are being alone. Now, what we're starting to see with these crazy narcissistic women that we're bringing up right now, what they're doing to their sons, and you usually see this with the younger child, they'll nature their older child and then they'll nurture their youngest child, and so much so that they'll create a codependence. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to turn their youngest, and they're doing this with their sons as well. They're trying to turn their son into the boyfriend that can never leave. The boyfriend that will always love them, the boyfriend that will always be their emotional tampon and be there for them, and the boyfriend that will always bring them resources. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're having a kid to feed their own fear of never being alone.
Yeah,
we see this a lot. We see this a lot with women. They have kids so that they can have a constant drip of love and attention and affection and control for the rest of their life. They don't care about teaching their son about toxic women. They don't care about teaching their son about masculinity. They just want a nice little fucking emotional tampon to be there for the rest of their lives, thinking that, if I dump this much into them, I got the relationship equity now as well, and they're going to take care of me. And it's fucking abusive. Abusive.
Funny.
Sorry?
I was just looking at the comment section. I was like, Ardell is too funny. He was being cynical. He said this sounds like toxic masculinity.
I love it.
One thing, one thing I have to bring up, and I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on this. So a lot of these women wouldn't be single mothers if men never came in and hit it to begin with. Right. So isn't there an argument to be made for sexual control on the side of men, or at least more responsibility in terms of making sure you don't get a girl pregnant?
Corey, can I answer that question real quick? And I'm sorry to interject.
I'm going to get back to Steven's question after you ask your question. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, it's not a question. It actually goes along with what you said earlier when I camed in, when you said that we're no different from the chimpanzee in the jungle. We're savages. We're primitive. Mm-hmm. We are the monkeys. You know, we're a different set of a monkey, but we are the ape. So a man, I hate to say it, is gonna have sex.
Right.
It's I don't know, man. I try to have self-control, but it's hard sometimes.
And you're kind of stealing from my answer right now, because it's just like saying, why not teach men not to rape? Right? You can't teach. I mean, we've done enough in society to this point in time where there's enough of a punishment to make it so that the incentive is greater to not rape than it is to rape. Does it make sense?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Now,
and I'm not saying that like
what you're saying kind of ties into what religion tried to do for a while. Because what religion did was it said, all right, what we'll do is we'll kind of shame men out of their sexuality, but we'll also contain women's hypergamy through shame as well. But those things are out of the box right now. Pandora's box has been opened on it, and you can't go back, right?
Oh.
So what are the things that we can do? What are the things that we can do? And we could use society to do this. Now, one of the big things that I have to say, and a lot of people disagree with me on this one, however, I think it is a viable solution. I think this, with the abortion topic, hear me out on this. I think men should have abortion rights too.
I can see that.
Hear me out on this. It is no longer her body, her choice. It is if either one of the parents do not want to be a parent to that child, it is therefore going to be an abortion. And think of the long-term effects of this. So that's one. And we'll talk about this one a little bit further. Number two, we get rid of the welfare state, right? We get rid of the welfare state and any type of incentive to help out with single mothers from the state. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Number three, family courts go bye-bye. Child support and all that other stuff. Bye-bye. So no more welfare. Greatly reduced welfare. If anyone wants to come up with a nonprofit organization that can provide 6 months of services to someone that's on hard terms or that hit hard times, beautiful. And have a database, though, so we don't create a bunch of scammers that'll do 6 months at one nonprofit and then 6 months at another and so forth, right? Create a database of these people. Because I myself, I was homeless for some time. I needed a leg up at one point in time, but it was so much so to the point where I didn't like having people doing so much stuff for me constantly and having that level of control, where I was like, okay, I'm good. I've rebounded a bit after losing my business and filing bankruptcy. I can go on my own now. Beautiful. Some people need legs up. But what we've created was a system that incentivizes people to have children in order to get paid and not be good parents. So if we bring in abortion rights for men, no longer her body, her choice. It took two to tango. It's going to take two to fucking have a child again. They both have to agree. Otherwise, no child. Number two, get rid of family courts, right? That make people and men pay 18 years of child support. Because what's this going to do? It's going to incentivize people to have safer sex or have sex if they want to stay committed to someone long term, get married, have kids, right? But there should be a plan B for men as well. And then number three, like I said, so you get rid of the family courts, get rid of the welfare, and then give men abortion rights as well.
That sounds
all of these
are like that. But I guarantee you 100% that that's going to greatly reduce the amount of women having fucking children out of wedlock.
I totally agree with that.
That's a good idea.
But, I mean, but we both know that it's fairly easy not to get a woman pregnant, right? I mean, most men have that like ability in the moment. Just okay.
And listen, I don't think that's the last stop, Stephen. You know for sure that I'm all about mentoring men.
Right.
I think, like I said, from 13 to 18, I think that boys need to go to their own school and they need to learn about masculinity. They need to go through a rites of passage right at 13 years old. And then they need to go to an all boys school and learn what it means to be a man. And they need to learn about the red pill.
Yeah. Definitely.
Right? Working around and being with other men, learning about hard work, right? Learning different types of trades and skills when they're in the school, of course, self-defense and so forth. But they're also learning about women. Boys from 13 to 18 are the lowest value men on the planet. From 18 to 30, you're like the next tier up and you're still not a very valuable man. It's like, why would you want to be risking at that point in time without having any type of resource or any type of social value getting a woman pregnant?
Facts.
Right?
It's interesting. I just had a talk with a 16-year-old the other day about this similar topic because they were taking their online class and they were doing government and asked me about my political party, whatever. Then they were like, what is your stance on abortion? And I kind of went through, I was like, well, if there's a 14-year-old and his girl is 15 or vice versa, and they get pregnant, his life is over, you know what I'm saying? They need to abort it. You know what I'm saying? But the kid was able to give me like, rational shit to actually think and respond to. So it seemed like he had been, taught a little bit about like, what to do and what not to do in that situation where, it's okay, you got a bitch, don't,
What do I always say? I say wear a condom, pull out 30 seconds before you're about to bust, and don't fucking get cum anywhere near her fucking pussy. Right? Like plain and simple.
Well, if you teach that to every 13-year-old growing up, I guarantee you everything that you say will not that it won't be needed, but it'll be easier to implement because it's the single parenting or the children having children, the abortion rate, all that shit will go down incrementally over years because all these young men are growing up knowing how to use their wood with responsibility.
Correct. And then there's going to be backstops because the biggest detriment that we're seeing to our society and our culture right now is having unwanted and unnecessary children. I hate to say it like that. But the problem is when you have a child who is only born to one parent, there is a deep feeling of abandonment from the get-go. And the thing that most people don't understand is this abandonment emotion that's locked into a child early on leads to greater forms of mental issues on top of addiction, which you bring those two together, right? Emotional issues plus addiction. And what do we have? We have George Floyd. Yeah, we have George Floyd. We not just that, we also have fucking school shooters. But let's not just knock the black community at this point in time. The white community has their fucking mass shooters. And the large majority of the time, these people are born to single mother households and they're on some type of fucking psychotropic medicine because they have some type of mental issue that ties back to being abandoned early on. Now, the big thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and I've been wanting to shoot a video on this stuff, for generations now, we've been blaming the father. Oh, that's a deadbeat dad. That's a deadbeat dad. That's a deadbeat dad. The large majority of the time, though, and this is from what I see, most men want to be fathers. Most men want to be fathers. But what is a strong enough force to push a man away from his own child?
The woman.
A toxic fucking cunt of a woman. It's enough for you to just say, I'm washing my hands of this shit because I can't win. You feel me?
Yeah.
So a lot of these men aren't really deadbeat dads. They want to be fathers. But the pain is too great of being around that toxic woman, which also ties into what we're talking about, though, right? We got to start teaching our kids early on. Don't put your dick in crazy. Don't impregnate fucking crazy. Don't impregnate whores, right? Identify the red flags early on. And this is why I like it, because, a guy is a guy, right? He probably will end up having sex with her. And if there is a mistake, he should have an option to be able to abort that child, I believe. Because, like I said, I would much rather have two consenting adults that are choosing to be parents, that are going to provide a good household to a child, than sitting there saying, oh, well, God says that we need to have this child because it's a life. It's like, what kind of life is that child going to live, right? They're going to live in hell with that mother. They're going to live in hell with that abandonment feeling. They're going to live in hell with that mental fucking whatever. And then they're going to become addicted to something. And it's not going to be good. And what type of net effect is that going to have on society? It's going to be negative, especially what are the percentages of people that actually go and get their mental issues fixed?
Not too many.
It's not too many. Exactly. So it's like, all right, abortion isn't evil, but let's decentivize all of this stuff and let's teach people the right ways of doing things. So it's a multifaceted type of education, but there should be stop losses along the way. And men should have rights to those stop losses as well. And what we need to do as well is we need to decentivize women from having children just for money.
Oh, absolutely. And I see this as a huge problem, especially with the Hispanic community nowadays. And that's one of the communities that tends to get lost in the black and white conversation, is that we
You're
see
right.
like Hispanics have, they have a crime rate that's similar to the black population. They have the second largest out of wedlock amount of children being born out there, and also their obesity rates are incredibly high.
Incredibly high. Absolutely right.
And like
the type of nutrition that the Hispanic community has around me is atrocious. I'm seeing 5-year-old girls walking around right now that are obese.
Yeah,
Obese.
and that's straight up abuse. I
agree. There's nothing that drives me more crazy.
I'm from South Texas, so I'm in a town with a lot of Hispanics as well. And one thing I've noticed is like not only like how many Mexican women are just totally fine with like cutting men out of their life as soon as they question anything, but like they'll just have like 3 or 4 kids with that same guy and then just take care of the kids forever. Like sometimes they won't even go completely on welfare. What they'll do is they'll just work like, for 50 to 60 hours a week, and they'll just pitch the kids off at pre-K, at daycare, at kindergarten,
right.
at kindergarten
school. And that's essentially all the
school
systems have turned into. The school systems have turned into daycares rather than turning into education systems.
Oh, they're definitely not about education anymore.
No. And unfortunately, it's actually just all Marxist propaganda that's pushing feminism as the militant wing of moving this agenda along. And now we've seen 2-3 decades of what that's caused. And we're reaching a point right now where our civility amongst the population is kind of no longer there. So we can see how the domino effect of all this stuff happens when we apply these systems that were applied. But what I offer are solutions. Now the solutions, and of course, what's going to end up happening? People are going to come out and they're going to label me, Corey, you're a racist, Corey, you're a homophobe, Corey, you're a eugenicist, and all this other shit. It's like, you got all these labels for me, but I'm throwing out solutions. What are your solutions?
They don't care about who you actually are, and they're not interested in solving the problems. What they're interested in is making people as dumb and compliant with the system as possible.
Independent. They want dependent, useful idiots that are going to continue to feed the system. That are going to just say, yes, sir, I'll wear the mask. Yes, sir, I'll take the vaccine. Yes, sir, fry my brain with 5G. Yes, sir, keep putting fucking GMOs and all this other shit in my food. Okay, cool, no more meat. All right, I'll eat the fucking plant. What is fucking shit that they're coming up with? Beyond Meat, estrogen burgers. Sure, I'll eat all that stuff. Just don't label me one of those bad people, right? And it's like people are so scared to be labeled with these things that don't have any real context to them, instead of just saying, no, that's wrong, fuck off.
They want people to be about that bug life.
I know, right, dude? How crazy is that? Even though I've had some teriyaki crickets before in Japan, they were pretty good, but I'm not eating that as a fucking what's it called? As a meal every day. Let's see what he has to say here. Number one, men drop their ideas as stereotypes and start learning how to raise kids so when they separate from wife, children can live with father. 2, men need to take care of themselves, not say they are okay. I agree with that. It's everything I talk about on here. I talk about how men can just be the best versions of themselves, be a walking role model. A lot of people out there aren't teachers, but the thing is, if you become a role model, if you become a walking model, you won't have to teach that many people anything. You can teach people through your actions. And that's what's wrong with our society as well, is that there are too many people out there that don't lead with their actions. They lead with their words, and talk is fucking cheap. That's why I have a big issue with a lot of the people in the red pill and the manosphere. It's because, like, where's your fucking receipts, motherfuckers? You sit here and you talk a big game every Saturday morning and you talk shit on all these other guys, but where the fuck are your receipts? How well-rounded of a man are you?
It seems like today in our society, we place a lot of value on going to university, and how that relates to what you were saying was that people put a lot of value on words and not on actions, right? If you just talk a good game, people will just ignore everything that you do. And I've seen this happen in my personal life, right? You know, if I say something incorrect, then suddenly I'm a really bad guy, despite, you know, all the good stuff that I'm doing that they know that I do.
Yeah.
All that matters to them is what I say. If I participate in their delusions and I pretend that I'm super nice and I talk about the same stupid stuff that they do,
Right.
then I fit in. But then I'm normal. But if I don't, then I'm a bad person. Because all that matters to them is if that's all that matters to dishonest people, is that you participating in their dishonesty.
Where do you think that comes from, Stephen?
I think that comes from, well, the system nowadays. I think people are indoctrinated on a fundamental level that that the system tells you anyone who makes you feel uncomfortable is a bad person, right?
Right.
Yep. Because my emotions are truth. So if I feel bad, that means that person's evil. Instead of sitting here and saying, I wonder why that person would say that. And I wonder why I'm feeling this way, why I'm feeling that reaction. So it's I forgot what I was listening to yesterday, but Jocko Willink was talking about this in his book. He said, and obviously Jocko Willink was a Navy SEAL and he did Navy SEAL training. So he trained Navy SEALs. And he said he had this one platoon one time going through training, and they would do a series of races, right? Always with the boat. And they had this one team that won all 5 of the races, and they had one team that lost all 5 of the races. And he said there's a big difference between the team that won all 5 of the races and the team that lost all 5 of the races. After every one of the race, they would all have what we call a hot wash. All it is, you just get together and you discuss what was done right and what was done wrong and how we could fix it, right? So that's a hot wash. Team A, the one that won all 5. Every single time they had a discussion, they would point out what went wrong. The people that did things that were wrong, even they would self-identify. Hey guys, I was a little bit slow on this one with my timing on these whatever. Next time, I promise I will do better. Okay, next guy. Yeah, you know what? With that said too, I was a little sluggish here. My communication wasn't as good. I'm going to work on communication next time. Cool. All right, moving on. Then you go over to team D, let's say, the one that lost all 5 races. And what were they doing?
Making excuses, I guess.
They were pointing the finger at everybody else.
Yeah.
I would have done so much better if fucking Kevin was two inches taller. He's short. We need to kick him off the team. How's that make you feel, Kevin?
Like shit.
Yeah, and what do you want to do for me? You want to work on the same team as me? Do you want to put out, or do you want to fire back at me and say, oh, well, you know what?
I want to fire back at you and tell you something that you messed up on. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, well, guess what? If you weren't 235 pounds, we could have moved faster, you fat shit. Oh, fuck you, right? And how's that for our teamwork? Not going to help out.
It develops a low moral base, right?
Exactly. So, you know, I think this was in the Bible. It says, you know, before, what was it? Before you It's something about a log in your eye. Before you throw
Before you point out the log in your brother's eye, make sure that you do not have a log in your own. That's basically how it goes.
Yeah, something along those lines, right? So it's okay to criticize the team. It's okay to criticize something, but it's also important too, as well, that you take a moment of self-reflection and identify, oh shit, am I doing something wrong myself? And take accountability for that. Now, I'm not saying you have to be this kind of cheesy cheese dick person every single time and be like, hey guys, I just want to come in here and say, I didn't do that great of a job. I could have been a little louder. But you know what? Kevin over there or the team or whatever, we need to do better here. Right? It's like take accountability where accountability is due. But then also at the same time, when you're criticizing people or criticizing whatever, make it actionable and make it a no kidding, like good form of criticism rather than it being pointing the finger and turning someone into an enemy, if that makes sense. You feel me on that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
It's always better to see where you can work with people rather than try to make them your enemy immediately.
Well, and it's not just that. The main reason why I mentioned that story and all this other stuff, though, is that we just have a really big lack of self-accountability where people can sit here from a higher perspective and say, what am I doing wrong? What did I do wrong? You know what? Maybe that person, maybe from that criticism, maybe he's 50% right. Okay, I'm going to take the 50% of what he was right with, and I'm going to agree with that, and I'm going to toss out the rest. But I'm also not going to fire back at that person and be like, yeah, well, you're a dick for criticizing me. Be like, yeah, you know what? Actually, that was good. That was good, whatever. I don't need to buy in 100%. It's kind of like what's going wrong with leftists today. Leftists can't have a conversation with someone who doesn't 100% identify along the line with their ideals. And you can't live with somebody like that. You can't. Right? Because these people are not mature enough to understand, okay, maybe he's only 50% right, but at least he's 50% right. Maybe he's only 10% right. Okay, he just gave me a tidbit that I can fix. I'll throw out the other 90%. I'll still agree with the guy and be civil, right? I'll still be civil with this person. I'll take the 10%, I'll discard the 90, and we could still be civil. Holy crap, how crazy is this?
This is where the WarTribe has been so useful to someone like me, right? It's identifying, finding out what your boundaries are, right? And gracefully enforcing them around people. Not only your friends, but family and everybody else. Because recently what happened, and I remember there was a member of the WarTribe, he was ribbing me on the fact that I was going to live with another roommate, right? And I had thought about that for a while, and I met him in person, and you know who I'm talking about, Corey. But and he was like, hey, this guy, he's a bit suspicious. You should keep an eye on him. And I was like, all right, okay. I kept that in mind. And like when I got back home, and after I just really started being observant of his behavior, I started to realize, okay, I've really got to start enforcing some boundaries here, and I can't move in with this guy. That would be an inappropriate thing to do. And so yeah, you're definitely right.
Can I? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Feel free.
So, since we're on the topic of race, and what we were talking about earlier, when you had mentioned accountability, right, and how you can't talk with people from the left because whatever you're saying, if it doesn't go with them, they won't. More or less, they think you're an enemy, right?
Right.
All right. So, I'll just tell you what school I went to. You ever heard of Kent State University?
Kent State, yes.
All right. Okay. So I graduated from Kent State, but while I was at Kent State, I had, I majored in several different degrees, but one of them was African Studies. And as a major, we would have a lot of debates, right? And one of the debates was the Black community. And people would say that, well, one of the reasons with the Black community is because the Asians and the Arabs are exploiting us. I would say, well, how did they come to exploit us? Okay, so you as a Black person, you don't have to go to their gas stations, to their delis, to their corner stores. Same thing with the Asians. You don't have to go to their restaurants.
Right.
Why isn't it that it's your fault that they are exploiting you? Why is it that it's their fault? Let me tell you guys something real quick, man. We were in class one time, and I brought this argument up. Do you know that the professor had to escort me out of class because everybody in the class wanted to kick my ass that day?
Let's hear it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. One time
love
I
it.
even.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Oh man. Like I even had things like, I was in. It was me and this Ethiopian girl one time. We were in one of the classes, and we had a report on Nazi Germany, and I and her actually wrote that maybe Hitler turned Germany around, and maybe that's why he was so goddamn vilified by the rest of the Europe. Dude,
I like that perspective.
The same thing happened. The professor had to walk me out of class, me and her out of class this time, because it wasn't the fact whether I believed that Adolf Hitler had a different side, and maybe it was the fact that I didn't agree with the masses of people. And one thing in the Black community that I can tell you is, if you don't agree with the masses of Black people and they know, it results in
you're a villain.
You're a villain.
Yeah, you're a villain.
You're a villain, and
I like the fact right now that you have Thanos as your thumbnail, because in my perspective, Thanos isn't a villain. I think he's the hero.
Not. To me, he's the hero. But
yeah, I agree.
That's another story.
Exactly. But it's all perspective.
It's all perspective.
It's these people that have been taught what their morals should be.
Right.
That get angry when you actually go contrary to what their morals are, because they don't really have morals. They don't know how to defend them.
Right.
But you've come up with your own form through critical thinking and soul searching and all this other stuff to identify the reality of the morals of reality. Does that make sense?
Right.
And to them, that's scary, because it's like, oh, no, we're supposed to have cookie cutter morals within the society because we've been told this is what we need to think. It's like, we got a free thinker over here who's making us think, and that hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts my ego. Kill him. Kill him. Kill him, right? It's like, I don't know if you've ever heard of this thing called wet monkey theory. Have you ever heard of wet monkey theory before?
I'm not familiar, nope.
All right. Because this is kind of what we're pushing back against right now. So I don't know if this is a real thing or not, but I do know that the theory exists. They placed 5 monkeys into a cage, and they put a ladder in the center of the cage, and on top of the cage was, obviously above the cage was a ceiling, and above the ladder there was a trap door. And what they would do is they would drop bananas down the trap door. Okay. Now, when they dropped the banana down, one monkey would climb up the ladder to go get the bananas. But meanwhile, while the monkey was climbing up there to get the bananas, all the other monkeys that were down below, the other 4, were sprayed with water. Doused with water, right? So 30, 40 minutes later, they put the bananas down. Another monkey climbs up. All 4 of the monkeys down below get sprayed with water, unbeknownst to the monkey climbing up the ladder. They repeat this again. Monkey goes to climb up. When the bananas come down, they get doused with water a 3rd time. 4th time, the bananas show up. One monkey goes to climb up the ladder, and all the monkeys beat the shit out of the monkey that was going up the ladder. Okay? Now they take one monkey out, and they put a new monkey in. Bananas come down. New monkey tries to climb up the ladder. All 4 of the monkeys beat the shit out of the monkey trying to climb up. Same thing repeats over and over and over again, right? So essentially they drop the bananas. All the monkeys beat the shit out of a monkey trying to climb up the ladder. They keep replacing the monkeys out. Needless to say, at the end of the experiment, all the original monkeys that got sprayed with water were no longer in there. Nobody had a clue why they're beating the shit out of this monkey trying to climb up the fucking ladder to get the bananas, but they just did it.
Yeah.
Right? That's wet monkey theory.
I'm gonna look that up. I have it on my phone right now.
That's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
Right? We get locked into this system of, there was pain associated to this one thing during this one time, this different criteria. Don't do that anymore. Let's pass that down with no actual reason.
Right.
For the monkeys, you guys have probably seen this before too, compliance, like practical jokes. People are sitting in a waiting area, and someone rings a bell. and the two people in the waiting area stand up every time the bell is rung. Then some new person comes in, the bell rings, and people stand up. And the first person that comes in that doesn't know what's going on, after some time, they start following the people that were standing up, and then they replace it, and it just keeps going. It's like these are people that don't have the ability to sit there and say, hang on, time out, what's going on? Why are we doing this? They just follow.
Yeah.
Part of that is that because the majority of people are just inherently tribalistic. We're inherently collectivistic, and like in the right environment, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that, well, the wrong people are in charge.
Right. That's what it comes down to. And that's why, again, going back to what I'm talking about, is we need to have the right leaders in charge as well. And that's another big issue that we're seeing in today's society. Oh, anyway, guys, I've been going for about 2 hours now. I definitely appreciate this. Actually, I think I'm going to try to start doing this a little bit more often because I enjoy doing this. I like having these conversations.
It was awesome. Do you mind if I plug my stuff?
Feel free. I was going to give you the opportunity to do so.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Go ahead.
So you can check me out at Censored Anon, and I'll type that in here. But I basically do a lot of meaningful and thoughtful content. I'm also on Instagram as well as Gab, and yeah, check out some of what I have to offer.
Kevin in Sales, go ahead, shoot your shit.
Yeah, my IG is Kevin in Sales _ and the YouTube channel is just Kevin in Sales. It was a pleasure, Corey. It was a pleasure,
No
Steven. You guys are very deep, and I definitely enjoyed myself.
Cool. Well, I got you on Instagram, so if I do this again next Saturday, I'll let you know.
Absolutely, man. Sounds great.
Sweet. And I'll let you know too, Steven.
Have a good evening, guys.
Have a good evening.
All right, last thing for me, anyone out there, if you guys wouldn't mind helping a brother out with some dollars, my first link, the first link in the description, paypal.me/Corey Capella. I'd appreciate some donations. Unfortunately, donating through YouTube sucks because they take too much money and it takes too long to get to me. So paypal.me/Corey Capella. Anyway, with that said, I appreciate everyone who watched today. Please do leave a thumbs up as well, comment, and fucking share. Share. If you could do anything, donate and share if you don't mind. With that said, I will see you all later. And if you're watching at a later time, not live, make sure you leave a comment, make sure you donate, and make sure you share. Adios, everybody. I appreciate it. Thanks. Goodbye.